keep coming back to you for the latest from Islamabad. Let me also welcome my guests who are joining us on the News Hour special edition this Saturday evening. We have with us Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF, retired Lieutenant General KJS Dillon, who is a defense expert, Professor Javed Rad, Assistant Professor of Politics, University from Iran. In fact, Sierra Claire, Foreign Policy Analyst, joining us live. Peter Kuznick, author and Professor of History and Director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. Also joining us is Major Nadeem, Pakistani Defense Analyst. Good evening to all of you. Thank you very much for joining us here on this edition of the News Hour special edition this Saturday evening. Lieutenant General KJS Dillon, to you first. First time, direct talks, face-to-face meeting, unprecedented. Does it signal hope?
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening to the fellow panelists and all your viewers. Yes. In this war, the war between egos and, big military powers and Iran as a, so to say, evil regime, the war brought nothing of concrete to any end state. War brought misery and, escalation of costs everywhere all over the world. And this peace talks, if they bring peace, I think that would be a welcome move, because over the last 38, 39 days, the energy crisis, the stock markets fluctuating, and everywhere there was a turmoil. And I think if the negotiations proceed well, and it can bring the war to an end, I think that would be a very welcome thing by all over the world. And people are really hopeful. And let's see how it goes.
Okay. Professor Javed, can diplomacy succeed where military power, many are saying, failed? And what does it really mean for Donald Trump?
Actually, the general sentiment in Iran is that we have already won the first part of this war. But to have great expectations about diplomacy, history tells us not to be so much sure. We shouldn't forget that we have had 2 rounds of discussions, 2 rounds of negotiations, although they were indirect negotiations, but like the good Muslim brothers in Pakistan, the Omanis also did their best to have the best transportation of messages. So in a way, Iranians are very skeptical about the outcome, whether it is in the short term, mainly in the long term. The long term is, as your guest mentioned, when you consider Iran an evil regime, and you forget about the empirical and manifestations of what Trump and perhaps the other Republicans would probably want to do. And even in the past, we have had direct negotiations between Gaddafi and George W. Bush. And what happened after that? As soon as a short uprising happened, you saw what happened to the Libyan people. So Iranians they do want to see diplomacy succeed, but and the economy is showing very little good signs right now. But we shouldn't have our expectations too high.
Okay. Sushant Sareen, what is your view? Because amid all of this, Trump is constantly posting on Truth Social in his own style, making many question if he really wants the talks to succeed or not. Because, he is a peacemaker. He calls himself a peacemaker. So, he would have loved to be in Pakistan to crown himself with a truce. But what do you make of what he's doing on Truth Social while the Vice President of the United States of America has been sent to Pakistan to negotiate with Iran?
Look, as far as Trump is concerned, there's apparently a civil war of some chimpanzees going on somewhere in Africa. And people are saying maybe he can go there and make peace between them and claim the Nobel Peace Prize. But let's talk about more serious and substantive stuff. One, this business of America calling the Iranians an evil state. It is not as though the Iranians have not given it right back to the Americans. Right from day one, they call America the Great Satan. So this kind of insults being heaped on each other and the kind of hatred which exists between the two countries is old hat. The question is the situation where you are in now. And unfortunately, while in theory, I hope what General Dhillon is saying that comes to pass, that some kind of a deal can be worked out. But if you think, put on your practical hat, it doesn't look like that's in the realm of possibility unless one of two things happen. One is that the Americans simply throw in the towel and say, we have no stomach for a fight, we want to get out of this thing, and then we'll figure it out as we go along. Fine, the Iranians will get a resounding victory. They will probably get most of their demands met, including their sovereignty over Hormuz, or they will work out some kind of a thing over the Straits. They will probably get to keep some of their nuclear demands in place, which means that basically at best going back to what they had agreed during JCPOA, that also if they're in the mood. But there is also a possibility that the Iranians overplay their hand and they think that actually Trump is so desperate that we can push the envelope to a point where we can get much more than what we otherwise would have expected. And then the deal breaks down and you go back to a warlike situation, which becomes really messy because not only will the Americans wreak a lot of havoc in Iran, but the Iranians will also hit back, not just against the US and Israel, but also against some of the Arab states in the region, which then threatens to become a wider war, and it is a mess all around. It has global implications in terms of energy supplies, all kinds of other things. So it entirely depends on where the two sides can strike a bargain. As of now, as we speak, there is no meeting ground. Another thing, what we are hearing, and again, these are conflicting reports which are coming out of Islamabad from various sources, but what we are hearing is that the discussions so far are only very preliminary and only on the kind of preconditions going into substantive discussions. So right now, not even talking about the reasons why this war was waged. This was about the nuclear program of Iran, the
Right.
missile program, some of the other things, and from the Iranian side, sanctions and economic factors and other stuff. So right now, you're talking about stuff which is not even there, which was not the reason for the war. You're just talking about going into negotiation. So I am like General Dhillon. I think army men are generally very optimistic. I am not very optimistic about what's going to come out of this.
Okay, you're
I
not
hope
very
General Dhillon, but I'm not. I'm
okay.
not very optimistic.
Okay, you're not very optimistic, and there are reasons for actually feeling like that because of the reasons that you explained. Sierra Claire, I'm wondering why Donald Trump is not in Pakistan. Is he trying to insulate himself from giving into Iran's demands? Because so far, the reports that have emerged from Islamabad seem to suggest that Iran is absolutely clear with its list of red lines. Iran is clear with its list of demands also. And many say that Iran has an upper hand.
Well, I wouldn't say Iran has an upper hand. President Trump has illustrated our military leverage that remains over Iran with even more naval buildup happening right now. But in terms of why he's not there, it would be very out of the ordinary for the president of the United States to go to the talks like this. I think it actually shows how important President Trump, places on these talks, because he did send the vice president of the United States. Normally, you would send the specialized negotiating team, which is also there, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff and others. But to have the vice president go is not normally how the United States does things. So I think that it actually shows President Trump places a lot of importance on the talks. He wants the talks to succeed, but he also understands that the Iranians, they do use the talks as delays. They often don't take them seriously. And so he's staying back in the United States to act as the commander in chief of the military and keep that military pressure on as well.
Okay. Do you agree, Peter Kuznick? Do you believe so? What Sierra Claire has said?
No, I see it very differently. And Trump said it himself. He said, if the talks fail, I'll blame Vance. And if they succeed, I'll take all the credit. The question is, why did he not send Rubio, the Secretary of State, and the National Security Advisor would seem a more appropriate person. But the Iranians asked for him to send Vance because the information coming out of Washington is that Vance is the most critical of the decision to go to war with Iran. So because the Iranians, for good reason, think that Witkoff and Kushner are ignoramuses. And they saw what happened when the Omani foreign minister was mediating and said that they were very close to a deal, and Iran was willing to give up its enriched uranium. At that point, Israel and the United States bombed. The same thing had happened in June, similar situation. So they don't trust the Americans, and they have good reason not to trust the Americans. Most people trace this back to 1979. I trace it back to 1953, when the CIA overthrew the Mossadegh government in Iran because Mossadegh was nationalizing British oil interests. The U.S. ambassador said Mossadegh had the support of between 95 and 98% of the Iranian people. He was democratically elected, enormously popular, and the U.S. overthrew him. So there's no reason why the Iranians would trust the United States. But what worries me, even with Vance, Vance said that the U.S. has weapons in its toolkit that have not been used yet. And we know that there's been these threats. When Trump says we're going to wipe out Iranian civilization in a day, how do you commit that genocide? Only with the use of nuclear weapons. So when Trump said last Sunday, you can't have nuclear weapons in the hands of a lunatic, I think he was talking about himself.
Okay. Lieutenant General Didden, that was the reason why I was asking this question also earlier, that, maybe Trump doesn't want to return from Pakistan with a failure, and that's why he has sent, the vice president. And Iranians have also made it absolutely clear that they'll only have talks with somebody or the representatives who do not keep Israel first.
Absolutely. See, in this war, Iran, if it does not lose the war, it is winner. And America and Israel combined together, if they do not win the war convincingly decimating Iran, they are the losers. And what has transpired over the last 38, 39 days of war, America's declared aim, political and military, of denuclearization, regime change, nothing has been achieved. And they have come down to a state where the nuclear uranium, enriched uranium, is still intact. The Strait of Hormuz has been blocked, and now they're begging for Strait of Hormuz to be opened, which was in any case open before the war started. Iran has the leverages of enriched nuclear uranium. Iran has the leverage of keeping the Hormuz under control. And America has now felt that this war they are not going to win, so they somehow want to get out of the region and declare victory for themselves. And that is the reason he has sent in the vice president. And in any case, I agree with Ms. Claire that generally the presidents don't come for such negotiations. That point is also taken. But notwithstanding, America somehow wants to get out of it. And this is a face-saving exercise, especially with the Trump's ratings dropping back home. He does not want it to continue because the political and military aim are unlikely to be met of regime change and of denuclearization of Iran. So I think this is a safer exit, or you can say face-saving exit.
Sierra Claire, face-saving exercise by President Trump?
Well, I would just add that, I believe someone else pointed out the fact that this is in Pakistan, which is actually a very dangerous place. And so President Trump would have a very hard time logistically and for security reasons directing military operations from Pakistan. So there are also some logistical and security considerations, being that there's an active military operation going on at the same time as these negotiations.
Okay. Major Nadeem, now questions are also being raised on the role Pakistan has really played in all of this. After, the goof up or whatever you would like to call it that happened, after the ceasefire announcement was made on the Lebanon issue specifically, many are saying, that probably whatever is happening in Pakistan is choreographed. There's somebody else directing everything, and it's just a platform that Pakistan has provided for both sides to come together. And but the actual direction is happening somewhere else. It's probably China that's directing everything that's happening in Islamabad today.
You see, China is already on board, but China is not costing or crafting this whole scenario, right? It is basically the Pakistan's objective or initiative that Pakistan wanted this end of this brutal war and withdrawal of the armada from this region. That is the primary objective of the Pakistan. That's why we are holding this. And we were getting the pulse and smell from both the contenders that both of them were exhausted. We are taught in army that the war sucks the region and expands. Similarly, peace also has this attribute that it extends. So we just created a space for peace there. Now the peace is there for 15 days. Now we are optimistic and we look forward and we are hopeful that hopefully the agreement will conclude tomorrow, because the presence of JD Vance shows that the agreement has already been done. Moreover, let me tell you, both the contenders had the mediation or negotiation in Oman, and the agreement was almost reached as far as the nuclear material concern or nuclear arm concern and things like that. After, but Israel convinced America that if you want to do this agreement, it is better to annihilate the Iran and then do the agreement. So that's what America followed that, and now America is also exhausted. And we are hopeful that the agreement will conclude tomorrow, because 80% of the points already agreed upon in the Oman. So nitty-gritty had already been discussed. Now the additional points. Now there are 4 points from the Iranian side and 4 points from the American side. Right? These are the additional, in addition to this war, previously from the Oman, right? The additional point is that the conclusive and permanent end to this brutal war, number one, from the Iranian side. Number one, withdrawal of the forces and the assurance that this war will not be imposed again, right? Moreover, the red lines from the Iran side, again, that is that they will not forego the development of medium-range ballistic missiles, right? And the last point is that they want to continue their nuclear development for peaceful purpose, and they want that they should be allowed under IEAE. America has also 4 demands.
Well,
right?
we have only heard Iranian demands so far, and then we have heard Trump saying, no, we cannot really, do everything that you're really asking for, because earlier also we got a news report suggesting that US has agreed to release the frozen assets of Iran. Then there was another news report suggesting, quoting a White House official, that nothing of that sort has happened. So, I mean, a lot is happening. Okay, Major Nadeem, I got the point that you're making, but I also want to move ahead as far as this discussion is concerned. And Sushant Sareen, now there is another important aspect that I'd like to quickly discuss with you, and it is the issue of Israel, the issue of Lebanon. Now, the latest update we are getting is that the Prime Minister of Lebanon has deferred his visit to the United States of America. What does it really mean? Because the expectation was that talks, between America and Iran will happen in Islamabad, between Israel and Lebanon, they'll happen in Washington. But now his visit has been postponed. What does it tell you?
So there have been reports. Okay, Hannah, just allow me half a minute to just say something about what we were discussing earlier. If, as the gentleman from Pakistan is saying, that everything had already been decided, listen, what was being negotiated before the war started? I'll be very surprised if that is still on the table after the war. Because the equations have changed after the war, because the Iranians now think that why the hell should they give in what they were ready to give in earlier? And the Americans, who, for their own reasons, think that they've actually won the military part of this war, will expect a lot more than what was on offer earlier. So I have some doubts on how that will work out. And frankly, if at all there is an accord by tomorrow, it will be a very preliminary kind of a thing to agree to continue to the talks. I don't think
Okay.
it will be a final thing. But on the Lebanon thing,
Hmm.
I s- there are some reports that the Lebanese government has agreed that they can postpone the ceasefire for
Hmm.
some time, which is also because the Lebanese government is not sovereign. It does not control the Hezbollah. So, on what basis are they going to tell the Israelis that listen, because the Americans and the Iranians are talking, please don't bomb Hezbollah,
Hmm.
but Hezbollah can bomb you?
Hmm.
That doesn't work. The
And
Israelis will bomb Hezbollah. They have said that they will not bomb Beirut. They will bomb parts of South Lebanon where Hezbollah is hiding. And
right.
I think you can deny the Israelis the right to self-defense. That is very much part of it. If the Iranians want to go against the lawfully elected government of Lebanon
Right.
because they want to put their proxy, that is like Pakistan saying that by we will protect Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed international terrorist organizations,
Hmm.
but you can't do anything about it. Sorry, that's not the way the world works.
And I just want to quickly go across to Lieutenant General Dillon as well. Very quickly, I want to ask you about the Israel factor here. Two different terms of engagement are there. Iran has Lebanon in it. US is minus Lebanon. So how will these sink Israel that's also in the war field but not on the discussion table in Islamabad?
Absolutely, Hina. Israel is one of the main stakeholder in this war.
Hmm.
Actually speaking, it is Israel who nudged America to get into this war, and that's how America came into this war, thinking that it's a matter of few days.
Hmm.
But after 14 or 39 days, when they realized it's going nowhere, that is when America is now asking for peace.
Right.
Now, Israel in the meantime thought it's time to even take on the Hezbollah side by side, and that's how they started bombing. Moment the peace accord was announced, Israel bombed Hezbollah like anything in those 10 minutes.
Right.
So that is where Israel was taking advantage of the situation.
Right.
And the mere fact that Israelis are not having a seat on the table in Islamabad,
Hmm.
one is because Pakistan and Israel, Pakistan
Right.
does not recognize Israel. They
Right.
don't have any diplomatic relationship with them.
Right.
And second is Israel does not want to be part of this peace accord because Israel will continue to hit Iran and Lebanon
And
post this agreement also,
that
because
is
that is how Israel will
the reason
survive.
we're asking, what is the guarantee, even though there is an agreement tomorrow in Islamabad, what is the guarantee that on the ground the situation is going to immediately, start improving? We leave it there. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on this discussion.